If I could have everybody's attention, we would love to begin. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Flaherty, and I am honored to be here as a member of the Metzger Committee, filling in for Gavin Andrews, who unfortunately is not able to be with us today. On behalf of the board of the Brookline Education Foundation, I warmly welcome you to our special presentation of the Metzger Fellows Encore edition. We're grateful to have you here. Many of you in the audience are at the beginning of your teaching journeys and relatively new to the Brookline community. We hope that what you hear from these remarkable Brookline educators will inspire and rejuvenate you, while also affirming the important work you do each day. To the incredible family of Margaret Metzger joining us, we extend a heartfelt welcome and our sincere appreciation for your continued support. It is now my pleasure to introduce Barbara Kleeman, co-founder of the Metzger Fellowship Program. Barbara will share a few remarks and introduce the Metzger facilitator, John Andrews.
Welcome, and it's wonderful to be here and to see all of you. Back in October, when we had the, the Margaret Metzger Fellowship event, John was in absentia because he was quite sick with, we guess, the flu. So I was thanking him through a video recorder, but now I have a chance to thank him directly. Back in 2013, John and I spoke, along with Abby Irvin, trying to figure what we could do to honor Margaret and her work of 40 plus years at Brookline in the English department. And John was extraordinary in brainstorming with us about some ideas that we could do to really have a program that reflected her commitment to education, her commitment to teachers, and her commitment to reflection and writing. And so we came up with this idea to have a writing program for Brookline educators, to give them an opportunity that we would support for them to reflect on their teaching practice, their experiences in the classroom, and to fashion it into an essay. And John, you have been just pivotal in that process. John has led the program from the start. So I guess we started in 2014, and we took off 1 year for COVID. And John has facilitated the training programs for teachers every summer. And
Zach did one.
oh, I'm sorry, right. Zach did one. Where is it?
There he is.
And Zach also hit for John this past October, which was amazing. John, I think what you brought to the program was your sort of compassion, understanding of what teachers experience, and your tremendous ability to facilitate their expression in writing. And so we are all incredibly grateful for what you have. Yeah. So I'd like to ask you all to give a round of applause. And so I'm just going to, on behalf of the Brookline community and the Brookline Education Foundation, give you this gift certificate, which will feed you well and allow you to read more books.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you all for coming out today. The way this is going to work is I'm going to talk a little about the program and about Margaret, and then talk a little bit about the person who's going to read next. So it'll sort of bounce back and forth between that as I introduce each of these amazing storytellers who are going to share what it's like to be in the classrooms of Brookline schools. I need to thank the Brookline Education Foundation, the Metzger family, and all who have donated and supported this program over the last 10 plus years. I need to give special thanks to Kim Barnum, the current executive director of the BEF. Jenny, yes. And Jenny Rothman, who's the associate director of the BEF. We've been such amazing partners through this process. I want to give a special shout out to Joelle Peterson, the interim senior director of teaching and learning for the public schools of Brookline, who helped organize this event for us today. The advocacy and support from these people make events like today possible. So what a gift we have in this town. Thank you, all three of them. A special thanks to the mentored professional learning groups who are here joining us today. We know this is a mandatory meeting, but we're also glad you're here. We hope that these stories inspire and challenge you, that they raise questions, they offer pathways for you to consider in your teaching career. We are incredibly grateful to be able to share our stories with you as you are beginning your careers here in Brookline. The Metzger Fellowship is a Brookline school program that supports teachers as writers, helping them develop, revise, and share publishable pieces about their professional lives. The fellows spend a week usually in the summer writing about their lives in the classroom, and then they share those pieces together at a fall event. That's what most of these events have been. Core principles behind this fellowship is that teachers as writers is key, that teachers need to be writers who explore their thoughts through the process of writing, which is a reflective practice that helps us figure out what we think. Sometimes we don't know what we think until we put a pen to paper or a finger to a keyboard. It's about building a community and building a shared craft. We work together. It's not writing in isolation. It's about authentic audience and hopefully publication. For this group in particular. And it's grounded in the idea that the voices of educators need to be part of the public discourse around what's happening in schools. This is something Margaret strongly believed in and I think has been an important part of our work together. Let me tell you about the first presenter. John was a bit of a wild card for me because I didn't get to work with him. He worked with Zach Brokenrope in a year when I was out sick, and I got to come and sit where you're sitting and just listen as an audience member, and I was just blown away by John. It was so much fun to hear his voice, to hear his humor, to hear his empathy, and his thoughtfulness about teaching. Special thanks to Zach Brokenrope for facilitating that year and for when I was out earlier this fall. I offer you John Weinberger from the class of 2022, who's a fourth grade teacher at Lawrence.
So my piece is called Consider a Teaspoon. What do you remember from fourth grade? When I close my eyes and I think about fourth grade, I remember trying to be in Michelle F's book club and faking tears at the end of Old Yeller. I remember choosing to play the French horn because it was the hardest instrument I could choose. I also remember not being able to play the French horn because it was too hard. I remember sleepovers, rollerblading, Echo the Dolphin, imagination games with my brothers in our backyard, and that at the end of fourth grade, my twin brother and I had a huge sleepover for our birthday, where 15, 9, and 10-year-olds sat riveted at a white Bronco being police chased down the LA freeway. Frankly, I do not remember what I learned in fourth grade. I do not remember Mrs. Miller's style, her lessons, her feedback, her coffee drinking habits. I do remember her smile. I remember her eyes when she smiled at me, and I knew that she thought that that boy with the long eyelashes was pretty great. So, if the kids don't remember anything, as a fourth grade teacher, why am I working so hard? Why do I spend so much time differentiating lessons, providing specific positive feedback, tweaking the worksheet I just spent hours making? When these details become hazy memories in the minds of our students, why are they important? Here's what I come to realize. What kids remember is the feeling of being seen. That's it. Kids remember the moments when someone took the time to notice them, their humor, their challenges, their interests, what makes them great. Every year I have the same goal, that each kid in my class should have a moment where they think to themselves, maybe I'm his favorite student? If each kid feels seen so that they think that, then I've done my job. The key to this is not big or burdensome. It doesn't take hours of planning, and it doesn't take much at all. It's to do small things, small gestures that say to a kid, hey, I see you. You are worth my time and attention. What about the big, terrible moments in teaching? Those moments when you think, why didn't I just go to dentist school? Will simply seeing a kid actually help? Barring the most extreme cases and serious events outside of a child's control, for most kids, the answer is hopefully. When a child is struggling in school, not just having a challenging day, but the kind of 5-alarm fire that will keep you up at night kind of struggling, you may feel like you are witnessing a smoldering fire spreading, crackling, popping, sizzling day after day. This fire can spread to other students and can start licking at your shoes if you aren't careful. If we are walking down the street and see a fire, we have 3 choices. We could run away, we could get angry about it happening, or we can get a bucket. If there's no bucket, you can get a jug, a glass, or even a teaspoon. Enough people with teaspoons can put out a fire. If we see a student who is metaphorically aflame, we also have choices. Number 1, ignore the problem and hope it resolves on its own. Number 2, get frustrated about the problem existing. Or number 3, get a bucket. And if you can't fully solve the problem, consider a teaspoon. I use small gestures when I am drowning and I realize a declining relationship with a student isn't getting better. I use small gestures when big gestures seem impossible. Mickey was a 4th grader who wasn't doing his homework, classwork, or group projects. He was barely going through the motions of school without committing to anything. Passive, apathetic, lethargic most of the time. The proverbial fire was burning, and our relationship was taking a nosedive. We were in a destructive stalemate. Mickey didn't like following any directions. He drew on his desk. He ripped up assignments he didn't care to attempt. His desk was always sticky with uncleaned apple juice spills. One thing you should know about Mickey is that he loved to jump off the swing at the highest point he could manage. No matter how often I told him he would hurt himself, he never listened, until the day he broke his arm at recess, trying to land like Spider-Man, one arm down, bracing his fall. This fire was burning uncontrollably, and now someone had gotten hurt. Something needed to change, and a small gesture had to be my key. One day in January, he was walking at recess with his broken arm pulled in from his coat, sleeve dangling in the cold winter air. His injury kept him from playing at recess for weeks, which soured his mood even more. I saw him, scowl on his face, walking toward me, and I jumped in with a smile. "Mickey, high five!" He used the only hand he had free. "No, Mickey, the other hand." He smiled at me and swung his armless sleeve in my direction. I grabbed his sleeve, high-fived his invisible hand, and then let his sleeve go. We went on with our day. We didn't speak of this until the next day when I asked for a high five again. He was ready this time, and he swung his sleeve in my direction for an empty 5, and then just kept on walking. On the 3rd day, he didn't walk away. He wanted to tell me about a Lego robotics competition he was preparing for with his team. He talked to me for the entire recess that day. That simple high five changed everything. Teaspoon after teaspoon, day after day, the fire fizzled, and without us noticing, was out. Small gestures can be a lifesaver when you are drowning. Now, when I think about students like Mickey, I smile. When Mickey is 30 years old, I don't think he will remember the assignments he refused or the messes he made. I doubt he will remember the assignments I modified with him in mind or the meetings I had with his mom. I hope he remembers that time that guy, that Mr. Weinberger, saw him and found time to share a small gesture, an invisible high five that said to him, "I see you, Spider-Man." Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's fantastic. This group, the Metzger Encore Fellowship, is a continuation of the Metzger Fellowship we do in the summer, supporting experienced teacher writers in revising, submitting, and publishing polished pieces. Margaret was a very experienced published teacher writer with articles showing up in Education Weekly, Phi Delta Kappan, English Journal, Harvard Education Review, among many others. She strongly believed in the power of writing to reveal thinking, to share with the world what teaching was about. She believed teachers needed to share their stories. At the end of our last session, I asked the group, so how are you doing? How's your progress in becoming a teacher or a writer? How has this group helped? And as we went around the circle, our next person, Alexa Cuff from the class of 2024, a K2 guidance counselor at Baker, said, "I am a teacher writer." Alexa Cuff.
Okay. My piece is called Crying Between Crises, Confronting the Mental Health Crisis in Elementary Schools. It is 7:55 a.m. and I am sobbing in the staff bathroom. Deep breaths, I tell myself, as I glance at my reflection in the mirror and see red, puffy eyes staring back at me. I have a kindergarten student with intense needs I must meet at 8 a.m. Allegra is a 5-year-old refugee carrying a robust amount of trauma, too heavy for a child, and her body and brain are struggling under the weight of it all. Every day, the second she steps into the school building, she runs and hides. Last week, she exited the building and ran down the street. The time is now 7:58, and her teacher will be opening the door any minute. I exit the bathroom and walk briskly towards Allegra's classroom. As I walk, my walkie-talkie crackles. Student support needed in 2P. I know that's for Sam, one of my other frequent flyers, who often exhibits unsafe behaviors, such as throwing classroom materials and hurting others, which can lead to a full class evacuation. I finally arrive at Allegra's classroom and am greeted by a panicked teacher who informs me that Allegra has already bolted and is hiding somewhere in the building. As I search for the student, my walkie-talkie goes off again. Jay, a 7-year-old who was recently discharged from the hospital for suicidal ideation, needs support. It is 8:05 a.m. and I am needed in 3 different places in the school building. As an elementary school counselor, I find joy in the many meaningful moments that come with supporting young people. On any given day, I might be teaching a 2nd grader how to solve problems with friends, facilitating a lunch group focused on coping skills, supporting a student navigating their parents' divorce, teaching a whole classroom social-emotional lesson, or connecting a family to community supports. I strongly believe that preventive intervention, skill building, and accessing care at an early age can lay a positive foundation for the rest of a person's life. I often feel blessed to have found a career that blends my skills and interests in a way that allows me to serve my community and make a difference in the lives of children. It's a plus that I'm a skilled Uno player. I'm unbothered by glitter, and I've never met a 6-year-old I don't like. This is more than a job to me, it's a calling. Going into this work, I knew that I would be juggling the messiness of being human. As my stance on glitter suggests, I'm not afraid of getting a little messy. However, I hadn't anticipated the sheer volume of students in active crisis, which has stretched my role beyond capacity and made it difficult to carry the essential preventive and skill building work I love doing. This, coupled with a system that appears indifferent to the needs of students and staff, has left me heartbroken. I'm questioning if it's time to leave my dream career, not because I love it any less, but because I can no longer afford to pour from an empty cup. Life is becoming more complicated for young people, and I see a mental and behavioral crisis unfolding before my eyes. Kids are struggling with emotional and behavioral regulation and schools are struggling to respond accordingly. Meanwhile, families are contending with food and housing insecurity, their own mental health concerns, and the structural inequities embedded in our society. According to the APA, one of the biggest challenges facing the growing demands of children's mental health needs is a shortage of service providers. What makes schools markedly different from community providers is that we are required to serve every student in need, regardless of capacity. In public schools, there's no such thing as a wait list. Given that my kindergartner, Allegra, is on a 9-month wait list for vital therapeutic services, school's the only setting where she has access to care right now. In a public school, it's our duty to teach and support whoever shows up, no matter the limitations of our current resources. Being a clinician in a school means that I must find a way to do more with less. Unfortunately, the current trends of underfunding and understaffing schools only exacerbate the increasing challenges. When resources are limited, priorities given to students exhibiting the most pressing safety concerns. While necessary, this leaves other students who also require support at a disadvantage. For example, when Jay is presenting with imminent suicidal risk, my weekly counseling session with another student must be canceled. No matter how hard I try, it feels like I'm always letting someone slip through the cracks. Being strained beyond capacity not only heightens stress, it can erode safety. The NEA cites that teachers' working conditions, including safety concerns and student behavior, are causing educators to leave the workforce at higher rates in recent years. Evacuating classrooms and being injured on the job have become all too common. Supporting Sam and maintaining the safety of the classroom. Oh, oops, I missed that part. For instance, when Sam is dysregulated, he becomes physical quickly. Supporting Sam and maintaining the safety of the classroom often places me and other response staff in the direct path of his kicks, slaps, and thrown objects. While no educator should have to go home with bruises, I also worry deeply about Sam and his classmates, who bear the invisible marks of witnessing it. I fear that I've poured too much of myself into this job, but I don't know how to show up any other way. Caring and connecting are at the heart of my work, and they cannot be neatly contained or switched off. Professional wisdom says to leave work at work, but some of it quietly follows me home. Some days the work has to come home with me because certain tasks could not be completed during the mayhem of the school day. Other days, the emotionally charged chaos of the day is hard to shake. Spending the majority of one's day in a state of heightened alert, moving between urgency and care, leaves its mark. This work is energetic, spiritual, and deeply emotional. Even when I manage to mentally compartmentalize, my body remembers. I feel frozen and empty, catatonic. Some days, it's difficult to take care of myself. I'm still developing my own practice of leaving the trauma and battle scars of the school day behind me, but something I cannot turn off is the connections I've made with my students. I carry them with me long after the echo of the school dismissal bell fades. Take Allegra, for instance. This is her first time experiencing fall in a new country. She delights in the fallen leaves of autumn, savoring the crunch beneath her shoes and the explosion of colors around her. After school, I often walk my dog through the woods to clear my head, surrounded by leaves that snap and rustle underfoot. Inevitably, I think of Allegra. When I come across a particularly striking leaf, the bigger the better, I cannot help but scoop it up for her, knowing that this gift will bring a smile to her face and make tomorrow's school day a little bit brighter for both of us. I don't know if I'll ever again admire the vibrant reds and crisp golds of fall without thinking of Allegra. Maybe when Allegra thinks back on her first year in America, she will remember being enchanted by nature's offerings alongside a teacher who loved her. Glimmers of joy existing with an unimaginable hardship. Maybe not, but I will always remember. Some might call what I'm experiencing burnout, but I see it as a systemic failure rather than an individual one. Despite that, I do not believe a person can ever truly burn out. You can try to dim their light, but their fire will never fully extinguish. I have 2 solutions to the problems I raised. One is actionable, and the other invites deeper reflection. First, We need to invest in public education and mental health services. This is a crisis, and action needs to be taken now. Our students are requiring deeper levels of wraparound care, and it's time to reshape our systems to meet the needs of today's children. Secondly, and more challenging, we must take a hard look in the mirror and recognize what's happening in our communities. If student behavior is a form of communication, what messages are these behaviors telling us? As I grapple with the future of our education system, I also wrestle with my own path forward. I'm torn between the work that fuels my soul and my own needs that I must confront. I'm still unsure how to move forward, but I know that it's time to practice what I preach. Focus on my circle of control, prioritize self-care, set boundaries, and ask for help. Though much remains to ponder, the morning has its own urgent reckoning. I find myself back in the bathroom, crying at 7:55 on a Monday morning. As I try to wipe away the evidence, forcing my breath and smile into submission, I face a logistical and moral dilemma. Whose tears do I dry first? Allegra's, Sam's, Jay's, or my own? Maybe the real question isn't whose tears I dry, but why there are so many to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. Okay. As Mary Birchnell wrote in a letter of recommendation for Margaret to receive a Caverly Award from the BEF, barely a day goes by when I don't hear a teacher, rookie, or veteran make reference to an idea of Margaret's. Several of her assignments and teaching techniques have become English department staples. That was true in 2005. It is true still in 2025. When I was a new teacher at Brookline, my mother came to visit me, and I said, "You have to have lunch with me and Margaret. You got to meet her." And at the end of the lunch, my mom said to me, "I thought she'd be bigger." She was not a big woman, but she was so big in my life. She was such an influence. She was my methods teacher when I was in grad school. I quoted her. I shared her writing and her ideas with teachers. I continue to do that for over 30 years. I still use her passage paper assignment. I still refer to her article about Socratic seminars when I talk to new teachers. She's been my North Star for most of my career as a teacher. Teachers are North Stars for students all the time. The next person who's sharing a story is Tracy Bear, who's from our first class of Metzger Fellows, what I call the OG team. Today is only happening because Tracy reapplied to do the Metzger Fellowship, and we thought, what a great idea. If Tracy wants to do it again, maybe we can find some other people who want to revisit this process. And so we came up with this wacky Top Chef Master model of Margaret Metzger Fellowship, and it's really all because of her, and I couldn't be more grateful. You're going to love her story. We always laugh when we hear Tracy share. Tracy, Pierce 8th grade science, come present.
In 1979, when I was in the 5th grade, I gave up on basketball. I was a logical kid, and it seemed to be the logical choice. 40 years later, I inexplicably decided to try again. This is the story of how that happened and what I learned from it. For purposes of this reading, I have shortened up my childhood suffering with ball sports. Suffice it to say, I was profoundly unathletic and uncoordinated as a child. In kindergarten gym class, I failed skipping, and things went downhill from there. So at age 11, I gave up. Time went by, I went to college, then law school, then I decided to change paths and become a middle school math and science teacher. I managed to avoid sports this entire time. In June 2018, while I was working after school with a frustrated and angry 8th grade basketball player on what he viewed as my stupid year-end project, I got an email asking me to play in the faculty-student basketball game. I looked at him, and I looked at the email, and I had a choice to ignore the email and not humiliate myself. but he did not have a choice. The similarity of our mindsets on basketball and science projects was not lost on me. For some reason, before I could stop myself, I decided that I needed to make a point about trying. So I responded yes to the email, and I went back to helping him. I played in the game. I was not a triple threat. I could not dribble, pass, or shoot. Unlike when I was a student, the basketball player and the other kids were supportive and kind. The next fall, I decided to go out and shoot the ball at recess sometimes. The kids liked that. Both the athletically inclined and the unathletic appreciated that their teacher was trying something new. I was told, "No, Miss Bear, remember, your arm is an elevator. Then reach into the cookie jar." I had thought I might be getting a tiny bit better, but apparently not. One day, a student referring to my inability to dribble the ball said, "Miss Bear, you can't continue to be this bad. They must have basketball classes for people your age." I was sure they did not, but when he said this a second time, I investigated and found that they do. Never Too Late Basketball. You should look it up. Now I had the chance to put my money and time where my mouth was on the subject of digging in when things are hard. That was in January of 2020. I've now been taking better basketball basics every Sunday for many years. I've learned many things about myself. Here are a few. During the COVID lockdown, I took a private lesson outside every other week with Coach Steve. Between lessons, I responsibly practiced what he taught. As it turned out, 2 weeks of hard work on my part made very little difference. Occasionally, when I practiced even more, I did something well enough that Coach Steve was caught off guard and surprised by my success. His cheerful tone was no doubt meant to be encouraging, but the slight intonation of surprise was duly noted. The expectation was that I would not be able to do this. I practiced the footwork for the layup thousands of times. Step with your left foot, pound dribble with your right hand, pick up the ball, leap with your outside foot, change your momentum, jump on your inside foot, ball at the top right corner of the square, make sure you have backspin, keep a soft touch. For an hour every morning that COVID summer, I was out at the park working hard along with the lady teaching herself to ride a unicycle. We commiserated. When my husband came along to videotape me, I learned that my vertical jump height was at most 4 inches. And my very lovely husband said, "You've got to be able to jump higher than that." But given my balance and all the things my arms and legs were supposed to be doing simultaneously, I could not. When classes resumed inside with Coach Manny, I used my excellent student skills, and I listened very carefully to his instructions, and I watched his demonstrations closely. Coach Manny looks alternately like a ballet dancer and a cat while playing basketball. I do not, no matter how carefully I attend to what he's saying. I learned that one plays basketball in a bent knee, athletic stance, up on one's toes. I started doing this at age 51. Instead of standing up straight and flat-footed, I proudly told our middle school basketball coach, Billy. He seemed confused. He said, "Trace, doesn't everyone know that? It comes naturally." I tutored and mentored a second basketball boy named D through my 8th grade class and then high school. He was a 3-season athlete, and he supported my basketball journey. One day, when he was in 10th grade, he came along to class to check on my progress. In the scrimmage, he wanted to pass me the ball, but I was running in the wrong direction, thinking about what to do next, and he yelled, "No thinking in basketball!" What? How is that possible? When I said something about the sun being in my eyes, he yelled, "No excuses in basketball!" D is brutally honest and lacking in tact. In the car on the way home, he had trouble coming up with anything both truthful and kind to say, the silence said it all. Recently, when I advanced slightly to become the worst person in intermediate skills and scrimmage, Coach Manny described a play he wanted us to practice involving an elevator screen, a backdoor cut, and some other basketball gibberish. I was afraid to raise my hand to say that I had no idea what he was talking about. It isn't all bad. I know after many years spent on this ridiculous hobby that I am much better. On the other hand, I am still really terrible. The rate of improvement is remarkably slow. When I do something I couldn't do before, I feel proud and I actually have fun. But in the few real games I have ever played where people actually care about winning, no one passes me the ball. Once, at the end of a frustrating game, I couldn't quite change my shoes before silent tears started running down my face. Luckily, only Coach Manny and Dee saw. Coach Manny understood and gave me a hug. Dee refrained from yelling, "No crying in basketball!" I still felt like an idiot. Why was a grown woman crying because no one would pass her the ball? Really, 5 years later, it's clear I am never going to be even competent at basketball. To use an education term, it isn't in my zone of proximal development. But it has shown me how it feels to be a struggling learner. Many kids feel the same way about math and science or reading and writing as I do about basketball. Every one of my difficult experiences has an analog for kids. They know in their hearts that these aren't things they can do well. They get stuck at a beginning level. Everyone else goes faster than they do. People sound surprised when they do something right. Explanations don't make sense. They're afraid to ask a question. And the whole exercise is no fun. They run up and down the court, but no one trusts them with the ball. And often, since it's middle school, people are mean. For some kids, the logical conclusion is to give up. But a person can give up on ball sports, but we can't let kids give up on school. The problem is that teachers are almost always school people like me. So it's easy for us to forget it is really hard to persevere at something that feels impossible. It's too easy to say, just work harder. Self-help books and Peloton instructors are full of sayings about that. In fact, there is an entire book for middle schoolers called The Playbook, 52 Rules to Aim, Shoot, and Score in this game called life. It has motivational quotes about how to be successful in sports and life. But you know what? All of those quotes are from talented and successful athletes. For instance, Kevin Durant says, "Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard." And Pat Riley says, "Excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better." But sometimes hard work and striving make no discernible difference. And it's important to recognize that and not paper it over with platitudes. It has been incredibly humbling all these years to feel the feelings that kids feel when faced with difficulties that seem insurmountable. The basketball player, Dee, may be a supreme athlete, but he feels those feelings every day that he attends school. We have struggled together from 8th grade on. He had a hard life, and it was enough each day just to deal with his home, let alone school. Dee had trouble reading and writing, and school made him feel dumb, even though he is smart. He got through high school by sitting next to me for hours while he tried to force himself to persevere. It was not fun for either of us. After the crying incident, I briefly wanted to quit basketball, and Dee said, "Really? Then I'll stop going to school since we're quitting stuff." Neither of us did. And little by little, he's still dragging himself through college so he can become a teacher. There are a lot of kids like him. They know that Pat Riley is wrong and that they will never be excellent. And sometimes trying to do the impossible takes way more energy than a kid has. So, if you want to be a better teacher or parent to kids like that, you should spend some time and energy trying to do something that seems impossible to you. And when it gets really unpleasant and seems futile, you should keep trying even though you don't want to. And then you should let kids know about your struggle and your failure. They feel much better knowing that grown-ups struggle too.
The unicycle gets me every time, every time. Margaret Metzger was committed to supporting new teachers. She taught new teachers at Simmons and Brown University. She wrote articles explicitly to new teachers, like her 2002 essay about classroom management in Phi Delta Kappan, or her famous essay, Maintaining a Life, a 1996 essay that's been passed around a lot. I still repeat her advice to new teachers: sign up for season tickets for something. Every year, sign up for season tickets. Find a friend with a sense of humor to have lunch with every week. I know for her it was Abby Erdman. For me it was Elon Fisher. With Gail Davis, she started Teachers Mentoring Teachers, an induction program at Brookline High School. She cared so deeply about teachers at the starting of their careers, and she would have been thrilled to have all of you here who are in the early stages of your time in the Brookline Public Schools. Our next presenter comes from our first group after COVID. We took a year off, but then we came back together. And she wrote about working with elementary school students. She told this incredible story about teaching Chinese as she walked around outdoors with her kids. So beautiful. Now she's at the high school. We're really happy to have her there. Wan Wang, class of 2021, BHS Mandarin teacher.
My piece is about I was her. Do you like to email parents or call them directly as a teacher? I'm not one of those teachers who can quickly pick up the phone and chat with parents anytime during the day. I always prefer to email them. I can think about what I need to say first, obviously, check my writing thoroughly, and then double check for any mistakes before sending. Not even ashamed to admit that that little undo button on the left corner is my all-time life-saving tool. Hey, don't blame me. I'm an English learner, lifelong, born and raised in China, and I want to make sure my writing won't cause any unnecessary confusion for any families out there. So you can imagine when I was checking my email after school and read an email saying a mom wants to talk to me on the phone as soon as possible, my heart starts racing. I dialed the number, the call went through, but there were no words, only the sound of sobbing. I knew what conversation usually start with small talk. How are you? The weather, the pets? At least that's what my English teacher in China once taught me. But she never taught me how to respond to the sound of a mother crying over the phone. I knew I didn't have much time to think. I had to act fast. Hi, this is Miss Wang. Is that Alice's mom? Amy? I just read your email. Through her sobbing, I heard broken words. Yes, thank you for calling me. Then, after a deep breath, she switched to Mandarin. You know my daughter, Ellie. You are her favorite teacher at school, but she said she doesn't want to go anymore. She has already failed many classes this year, has so much to make up, but she just won't do any work. Now she says she doesn't want to go to school at all. I am desperate. I didn't go to work today. I stay home to be with her. Can you please help her? Ellie, right. I didn't see her in the class today. That was unusual. She was always on time. She's new this year. She and her mom moved from China 3 years ago and transferred to BHS from New York City this year. She's quiet in class, but she liked to chat with me during the 7 minutes during classes. Sometimes I had to, rush her off to her next class, but she often looked hesitant to leave. Every now and then, she would join me at lunchtime in the Chinese classroom. And sometimes I even bought her a barbecue chicken wrap from my favorite place, Pepin Green, the staff cafeteria in high school. Of course, I would love to help her. Can you put her on the phone so I can talk to her? My heart pounded fast as I answered. I knew she has been struggling this year, transferring to a brand new school, mom taking care of her while dad working in China, taking some advanced classes, dealing with high expectations from both home and herself, rising anxiety built out of all this, you name it. But she locked herself in the bedroom and won't come out to talk. I'm crying outside and can hear her cry inside. I feel so sorry and so embarrassed to ask for your help. Her voice was so desperate. It's okay, you can contact me anytime. I wish I could reach out through the phone and give both Mom and Ellie a big hug. Can you please ask Ellie to come to my class tomorrow? And I didn't even finish talking before her interrupted. Okay, I will tell her you called. Thank you, teacher. Really, thank you so much. Ellie's dad is calling from China now. I need to take it. Thank you. Bye, thank you, teacher. Mom hung up the phone quickly. I was still shaken when the call ended, but I knew what I had to do first. I sat down at the computer and began writing emails. It was much easier just to write to her deans and guidance counselors, but it feels so not easy writing to Ellie, because once I was her. When I was 16, I was admitted to the best boarding school in the city thanks to a partial scholarship and a lot of financial aid. I wanted to get away from home, so I didn't have to face my parents' separation. But the moment I arrived there, I knew I didn't belong. Rich parents, different accent, trendy clothes, close-knit friends group already there. When I couldn't keep up with the class and earn good grades after the first semester, the one thing I had always been very proud of myself, I was completely lost. Locking myself in the corner of the classroom during the lunch, while, the rest of class all in the cafeteria, became part of my daily life until one day the young English teacher found me. Did you have lunch yet? Everyone has gone to cafeteria. She sat down across from me. I shook my head. I'm not hungry. I looked down at my desk, but I could feel the tears were hard to hold back. I have a meeting now, so I cannot stay long, but here, take this. You need to have some food. She took out a candy bar from her pocket and placed it on the desk. Thank you, teacher. I wasn't expecting this. I also wasn't expecting that the next day she would come back with more candy bars and more time to chat during lunch break. Then every day it was some of her homemade dumplings, CD players, English magazines, Backstreet Boy albums. Lunchtime became my favorite part of the day. We talked about my family, my school life, and everything in between. So by my second year, I made friends who also loved the Backstreet Boys, especially the song, Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely. By the third year, my last in high school, I decided to major in teaching in college. 4 years later, I passed the English test and a bunch of other tests, came to the US, continued studying education in graduate school. And fast forward 17 years, here I was, sitting behind the teacher's desk, writing an email to a girl who had locked herself in her bedroom. So I began to type, Dear Ellie, I didn't see you in class today, and we all miss you here. I spoke with your mom and understand you are not ready to talk with her right now. I hope that when you read this, you will know we all care about you and are here to support you. Don't forget, we can always share a chicken barbecue wrap whenever you come visit me at lunchtime. How about tomorrow? I cannot wait to see you back in Chinese class, and I launched soon. I hit the send button and waited. I hope her email would magically appear in my inbox the next second. But it didn't. While I was in the office, on the way home, or at bedtime, when I checked again and again. The next morning, Allie's seat was still empty. I was distracted, to be honest, while teaching her class, constantly glancing at the door and hoping she would join us. I was disappointed and couldn't focus. At lunchtime, I ordered the same thing, the usual barbecue chicken wrap from the staff cafeteria, and returned to my classroom to eat, or maybe to wait. After a while, with no sign of her. Who am I kidding? I said to myself, start to unwrap the foil, ate half of it first, while still checking my email box constantly. Then suddenly I heard a gentle knock on the door. I looked up. There she was, Ellie, entering the classroom quietly. Ellie, I shouted. I'm waving this other half of the barbecue chicken wrap in the air. Did you have lunch yet?
We'll never look at a barbecue chicken wrap the same way. None of us. One of the joys of doing this project is that I usually spend a day or two rereading through some old articles of Margaret's as I get ready for this event. It's so great to hear her voice, to be reminded of both her doubts and her certainties. I think she valued both of them so much. Here's a quote from an essay that Margaret wrote called Maintaining a Life, which is written as a letter back and forth between a young teacher and herself. In this passage, she writes, "You are not going into battle, though some days teaching seems so. You are going into joy. For when you teach well, when classes sing, you will feel great jubilation. Treat your students as adults, walk beside them as they educate themselves, and they will respond with respect, even joy. They will lead you. I wish you a good journey." Our next presenter is someone I first met chaperoning students to Italy with the legendary art teacher Osna Sens. That was a trip. He is a force in this town. He's a fierce advocate for students. He treats students as adults, and he walks and bicycles alongside them from Boston to New York City. He has a strong desire to write and tell the stories of his career, and much of it is amplified by his remembering of his father. And so I'm happy to present to you Paul Epstein.
Thank you. This piece is called Admission. How would you want to be treated on the very worst day of your life, at your lowest moment, when hope seems to be the scarcest of resources and you find yourself near the bottom of the list of people who care about what happens to you? What would you need and want from the people and systems entrusted to care for you? I'm lucky. I would have to think long and hard about when I reached my own personal psychological nadir. But as a clinical social worker who has worked with teens in a high school for over a quarter century, I've had to shepherd countless students through the very broken and borderline toxic purgatory of emergency adolescent psychiatric care. My unwanted seat as a passenger on this journey through overcrowded ERs and locked units has afforded me an insider's view of a system screaming out for massive overhaul. To arrive at the point of realization that a young person's mental health has degraded into the danger zone is frankly a terrifying place to be. There's no shortage of instruments and assessments clinicians use to take the pulse of a client for safety. But somehow, the Supreme Court dictum on pornography often applies here too. I know when I need to head to Children's Hospital. Carlos, a Mexican-American Gronkowski-sized senior in the throes of an emerging psychotic episode, took a swing at a guidance counselor he loved. Henry, a deep-feeling junior with a tattooed lyric from his favorite sensitive singer-songwriter, pulled the blue box police alarm at Jamaica Pond while holding a knife. Vivian's climactic act of teenage rebellion, a drug-fueled multi-day escapade on the run, ended with her physically assaulting the police officers who located her downtown. Other kids gave voice to all manner of suicidal thoughts and plans, jumping in front of a Green Line trolley, off a building they had practiced parkour on, or steering their parents' Kia into oncoming traffic, swallowing their entire bottle of antidepressants, the container of bleach under the sink, or the handle of grain alcohol left over from last weekend's party. There is never not a list in my head. Who could? Who would? I've visited the children's ER so often I know exactly where to park along the Muddy River to avoid the chaos of the Longwood Hospital District. I still mourn the closing of the Orange Julius in the food court. I never arrive at a student's bedside without a book. After explaining to them that what I'm holding is an ancient technology of intellectual enrichment with words printed on a bound pamphlet of paper, I hand over a title suited to their interests. Into Thin Air for Xavier, the Alpine Climber. Yes, he was the parkour enthusiast, and no, in hindsight, that doesn't seem like the best reading material for the moment. One of Samantha Irby's brilliant wry collections of humor essays for Tyra, a young black aspiring writer. Hardly an eye is batted when belts and shoelaces are confiscated, but I've almost instinctively had to check on a student's vitals myself after they place their phone into the outstretched hand of an ER nurse. There will be no mind rot here. There will be no contact with friends or repeated listens to the song that soothes or inspires. I try to proactively prepare my students in my office for the hurry up and wait, mind-numbingly monotonous water torture that awaits them in the emergency room. But how can anyone, especially someone in an existential crisis, get into the proper headspace to endure days of understimulated waiting? Waiting in a tiny room on a hospital bed for the on-call doctor to ask the exact same questions they've already answered with me and will answer again countless times as psychiatrists, nurses, security guards, and social workers go home and are replaced by new ones at shift change. My heart breaks harder for the kids without a parent or guardian to endure the hours and days by their side. It shocks me when a kindly nurse expresses surprise when they discover I'm not a concerned uncle, but a school social worker. How could I not spend time with a terrified and hopeless kid? How could I not demand FaceTime with the attending clinician to share my observations and recommendations as the person that knows the patient best? I'll admit to venting with exasperated parents on coffee breaks in the hospital lobby Panera and uttering some variation of the line, "If your kid wasn't crazy, suicidal, losing his mind when he came in here, he damn sure will be after another 48 hours of this shit show." The interminable wait for the golden ticket, an open bed on an inpatient adolescent psych unit, is cruel and unusual punishment for the crime of not wanting to be alive anymore. Death, or at least its specter, looms over every drawn-out second of the saga of a teen's hospitalization. From the moment something is said in my office that forces me to engage the muscles in my jaw so it doesn't drop, to the uncertain return to civilization, routine, and Chipotle that is discharge. Inpatient units are locked. These days, it seems, the key to gaining entry seems to be either having made a serious attempt to end your life, self-injurious cutting and musings about what it might be like to not wake up tomorrow don't count, or to vocalize with such certainty and logistical planning an intent to do so that it would constitute massive malpractice to send you home with just an outpatient appointment and a prescription. Counseling suicidal teenagers is not for the faint of heart. Conducting a therapy session with a teen navigating not only life's most labile and egocentric stage, but also a major depressive episode is like trying to ballroom dance with a partner on crutches who has AirPods in listening to Drake. They are, of course, considering the proverbial permanent solution to a temporary problem. It matters less than some might imagine whether the pain they are currently experiencing stems from gender dysphoria, a parent passing away in a car accident, or trauma associated with a refugee to immigrant odyssey, or the sometimes more insidious and numbly intense pain of no clear triggering event. I don't envy my counterpart social workers who practice behind those locked doors. Almost always, I have hours of conversational context and rations of rapport to lean on in my quest to unlock the mystery of how the young adult across from me in an IKEA chair might be helped. They do not, and the insurance clock is ticking from the moment they introduce themselves and invite their newest patient to sit down. As I tell my students, the ones on the edge, asking me nervously what it will be like in a hospital, nothing magical happens during a 5 to 10 day stay at a psychiatric unit. The talking cure from a new practitioner, new meds at different doses, or the latest and greatest cognitive behavioral therapy tools won't in and of themselves return a teen to their bedroom and classroom a healed being. Sometimes, I tell them, the simple act of taking a break from the daily routine is the very thing that helps most. The reset, the interlude, the before and after. Though rule number one is that no two kids will respond to a hospitalization in the same way. One will feel the other patients are from a different genus of the depressive animal kingdom and retreat to their room. The other will instantly bond with their hallmates and break every program rule about forming friendships, relationships, and situationships with the cutest ones they could get to look their way. One tells the social worker they feel better, more hopeful, no longer wanting to hurt themselves or cut short their young life. They mean it. Another tells the social worker the same thing, desperate to leave and return to the life they just days before found empty and unfulfilling. One operating assumption I've always worked under, and it scares me to death, is that the young adult who I should be most worried about probably won't tell me what they're thinking or planning. This is hard. Hospital administrators, insurance executives, and politicians with the power of the purse know more than me and most others about why kids are lingering in ER medical beds for days and weeks before moving to the appropriate placement. Of course, it boils down to supply and demand. One thing I do know for sure, despite the very best efforts of some incredibly compassionate and dedicated ER staff, teens in psychiatric limbo deserve far better treatment than what they're currently receiving. Teens shouldn't lose their right to have their basic human needs met just because they're down for the count. It seems impossible that certain tweaks around the edges can't be made both pre and post inpatient admission to ameliorate the patient experience and their well-being. This past May, I had a different occasion to visit a local hospital. My father, vibrant and vital at 87, went in for a quite routine heart valve repair and never left. After a torturous 2 days in the ICU, we said our final goodbyes. Such was the level of caring and kindness I felt from the head nurse throughout our ordeal. I returned to the unit a few days later with a copy of one of my father's novels. Throughout his final hours, the machinery and humanity of the hospital was on full display, even when it was clear that we had arrived at a moment when not much could be done other than playing Bach on a loop and pushing up the dosages of whatever palliative cocktail of drugs was coursing through the IV. We never felt ignored or unattended to. My father and my students were at opposite ends of the audacious adventure that is adulthood. But aren't my students' lives just as precious? Wasn't their predicament just as dire? Shouldn't the care they're offered on their unit come far closer to mirroring the intensive staffing ratios and expertly individualized attention my dad received in the ICU? Carlos should hug that guidance counselor at graduation. Henry should pen lyrics for his own song. Xavier should summit Katahdin, and Tyra should publish her own novel. We can help them get there. We must do better.
Thank you, Paul. Here's a story about Margaret I haven't thought about very much, but sort of hit me today. A few months before she died, I had an opportunity to lead some writing groups for teachers. I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but I reached out to Margaret to talk through my plans. She was retired then, and she invited me over to her house. We had tea and gossiped and told war stories. And then I showed her my plans, and she was encouraging, but also blunt. John, you need to prime the pump. You need an activity to get the teachers writing and thinking on that first day, a series of prompts to generate lots of ideas. With her help, I drafted a plan to brainstorm possible topics with teachers, and I've been using that activity with this group, with the Metzger Fellows, for the last 10 years. With each group, she's been shaping the work all along. What can I say about our last presenter? He co-leads one of the MPL groups at the high school. He's a teacher of teachers at BU on a course for new teachers on lesson design. He leads a book group for teachers at the high school, which I hope to get to someday. I've never made it, but I hope to get there. And this year he has a course release to help us think about AI in the humanities. He also has already published from this activity that we did here. His piece has already been accepted and published, so he's ahead of the pack. again. When I asked them how they were doing with their progress as teachers and writers, Evan Mousseau, the English teacher at BHS, said, "I feel legit." Evan, you're legit.
Thanks, John. Before I read in the role of the MPL facilitator, people who are here as part of that, later on, I think in a few moments, you'll receive an email from Joelle that has a form that you will fill out that confirms your attendance here. So the logistics piece is done as part of my job. And then one thing before I read my piece, John mentioned Margaret as a North Star for him, and I'm just very, very grateful for the many stars in the constellations that I use to guide my teaching who are here tonight. Thank you. This is called A Labor of Attention. Projected up on the whiteboard of my classroom before 24 high school seniors, Saoirse Ronan, wearing a green jacket over a white polo and pink arm cast, presents a truth that has remained unspoken up to this point in our classroom as she declares, "I think we're done with the learning portion of high school." In Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, a film that uses academic milestones and holidays to mark the passage of time, this line from Lady Bird to her friend Julie falls sometime in late October or early November, after a homecoming dance, but before Thanksgiving. Mercifully for me, the teacher of these student viewers, we have come to this agreement in late May, filling the months since the fall with reading, writing, and thoughtful discussion in this senior fiction and film course, the culmination of 4 years of required English classes at BHS. Lady Bird is the closing film of our class, presented to my students as a look back at senior year through a film that I think gets a lot right about the high school experience. I invite them to watch from a vantage point closer to the events of the film than they will ever be again. I suspect a part of why I find the film so accurate is that I, too, feel close to the high schoolers in the movie, having entered high school in 2003, the same year Lady Bird and her classmates graduate. When I watch this film, sitting among these 18-year-olds in the same kind of desks that I sat in when I was in high school, the same kinds of desks that Lady Bird and her classmates sit in, I feel moments of deep resonance with the high schoolers in the movie. It is hard for me to reconcile the fact that in the eyes of the young people around me, I have far more in common with Sister Sarah Joan, Lady Bird's homeroom and theology teacher, and, if I flatter myself, Mr. Bruno, her handsome young math teacher, than I do with Lady Bird or any of her friends. These teachers in Lady Bird are largely relegated to the background. The central dramas of the film are social and familial, not academic, and much of the school-based tension is around college and what comes next, not on what's left of high school. This, I think, is one of the things that the film gets right about high school in general, and senior year in particular. As much as we teachers may like to motivate ourselves with the notion that our carefully planned lessons and thoughtful assignments are the center of the high school experience, we know deep down that they are largely the backdrop for the rest of teenage life. Lady Bird understands this and does not concern itself with elevating us teachers to anything beyond supporting roles. Given our 55-minute-long class meetings, we have to split the film over 2 days, and the second day of our viewing starts late. Our class meets first thing in the morning, and over half the students roll in tardy, apparently without a care in the world. It is their last week. They are, recall, done with the learning portion of high school. My colleague and mentor, Rebecca, introduced me to the notion of seniors soiling the nest, a concept she herself first heard from Margaret Metzger. At the prospect of their departure growing nearer, seniors display increasingly unruly, disruptive, and just plain rude behavior. The psychological principle, in essence, is to make a place unpleasant so that maybe it won't feel so bad when you have to leave it behind. The avian metaphor feels apt, given the title of our final film, and we might consider some of Lady Bird's behavior through this lens as the film progresses into her second semester. Lady Bird skips auditioning for the spring play and instead leads Jenna, one of the popular girls, in pranking Sister Sarah Joan by decorating her car with streamers and a poster reading "Just Married to Jesus." From there, the nest soiling escalates into screaming arguments at home and culminates in a disruption during an anti-abortion assembly at school that leads to a suspension. It is in moments like these, with second semester seniors, that I find it hardest to relate to the image of a teacher who emphatically and unfailingly loves all of their students. Indeed, I often find myself pushing against the notion that love between us needs to enter into the equation at all. Calling teaching a labor of love can often be a tool for extracting even more labor from a population already working above and beyond the call of duty. If you love your students, how can you ever justify doing less than everything you can for them? But if I do my job well, if I develop their skills and thinking and interests with care and attention, isn't that enough? When Lady Bird returns to school from her suspension, she meets with Sister Sarah Joan in a scene that could serve as the central thesis of the film. Looking across her desk, papers in hand, Sister Sarah Joan tells Lady Bird, "I read your college essay. You clearly love Sacramento." Lady Bird is slightly taken aback by this remark. "I do?" she asks, before insisting, "I was just describing it." "Well, it comes across as love," Sister Sarah Joan responds. Lady Bird acquiesces, saying, "Sure, I guess I pay attention." Here, Sister Sarah Joan asks her, "Don't you think that maybe they are the same thing? Love and attention?" She leaves a space before and between those last words, giving them extra resonance, drawing our attention. Gerwig does the same, leaving us in the quiet moment between teacher and student for a beat before cutting away. 2 days after we finish the film and just 2 class meetings away from our last hour together, we return as a class to Sister Sarah Joan's words. For one final writing assignment, I send my students out to spend 15 minutes walking around our campus, paying attention, finding the places where they have significant memories, digging those memories up to examine them. They are required to leave technology behind and encouraged to ignore their friends should they cross paths. The assignment is about them, this place they've spent 4 years, and their memories. Afterwards, they settle down somewhere and write, returning with their piece at the end of class. They don't need to write affectionately. That may not be how they feel about this place, but they are still asked to write with care, aiming to capture a memory, a feeling, or something that they may want to take away from this school. While my students are writing in the field, I remain behind in our classroom, engaging in the activity in my own way, paying attention to the memories that come as I walk around our horseshoe-shaped configuration of desks, thinking of the students who will only sit there 2 more times. Joseph coming in each Monday with an update on the movies he watched over the weekend, his taste evolving over our year together. My many walks over to Megan and Kelsey to redirect them away from Spotify playlists and social drama and toward the task at hand during independent work time. Cam and Nate giving their friend Daniel a hard time as the last one to pack up and leave class every single day. I think also of all they shared in their writing across our year. Jamie's deep dive into the film techniques that Danny Boyle used to capture the underlying emotions of Irvine Welsh's prose in Trainspotting. Hannah's peek via screenplay into her year at an experimental alternative high school. Wes's account, the highs and lows of a senior high school rugby career under a tough coach. All these essays and screenplays, reflections and exam responses that have amounted to more time spent together, even when we were apart. As my students return from their exploration and submit their pieces before shuffling off to their next class, it is quickly apparent that not every piece of writing that comes back reflects the care Sister Sarah Joan recognized in Lady Bird's writing. It bears repeating one last time. We're done with the learning portion of high school. Still, the majority do embrace Sister Sarah Joan's words, providing me one last window into the places they have paid attention to on our campus. As Lady Bird predicted, few of the memories documented capture the content of academic classes. There are no memories of math tests or history presentations. Instead, we have a careful accounting of the drawings on the picnic table where Yuli spent lunch most days for her 4 years here. Jeremy drew the black box theater where he rehearsed and performed. Even the students who ventured down to the library wrote about hours spent socializing there rather than studying. From the 3 close friends, a triptych of pieces capturing the cafeteria overflow, where I often saw them during our shared free block. Andrea returned to the room of the supportive program she joined during her junior year, cataloging the memories she shared with teachers and students there before concluding, "This classroom saved my life." In 1 more week, many of them likely won't return to these places ever again. It's December now, and those seniors, like so many before them, are gone. But those places they cared about, the picnic tables and benches, and classrooms and cafeteria overflow spaces, are still there, and I pay attention to them through a new lens, identifying with the students to whom they meant so much. I do not need my students to have loved me, or my class, or books, or film, just as I do not need them to believe that I loved them. But I do hope they paid attention, and continue to pay attention, to the books and films and world that they will find beyond my high school classroom. I hope they feel I paid attention to them and their work and their ideas and their lives. And maybe that is the same thing, love and attention. Thank you.
Thank you for your attention. I just have a few quick words and then we'll be out of here. I've said it before and I will say it again. The work of the Metzger Fellowship and working with these educators has been a highlight of my career. I'm incredibly grateful for it. In graduate school, Margaret talked with us, Elon, about teaching as a triangle with a student at one corner and a teacher at another corner and the content at the third corner. And in the center of that triangle is love. That's what I needed to hear as a young teacher. That's what the work with this project has reminded me of year after year. Thank you for this opportunity. Keep telling stories. Have a great night.
I just want to thank everyone for coming this evening. And for the 2nd and 3rd year MPL teachers, we want to, again, the Brookline Education Foundation wants to say to you, we see you, we support you, we are here for you. We are here as a community that believes in the power and transformative nature of public education. And in this time where being a public school educator and supporting public education may seem like a political statement, to us, it is a statement of community and a building and sustaining of community. So we want to say again, thank you for being here. And as you all know, this is John's last hurrah as facilitator of the Metzger Fellow, and we want to thank him again for the amazing work. And our commitment continues to you as educators, thinking about, talking about, and reflecting on your practice. So we have a new person that will be joining us as facilitator of the Metzger Fellow that I would actually like you all to meet today. If you are an educator and you've been teaching over 5 years in this public schools of Brookline, if you happen to be in the audience, we hope that you will think about joining and applying for the Metzger Fellows. So the program is thrilled to announce that the Brookline educator, Dominique Herrard, will be taking over as the program's facilitator. Dominique's career exemplifies the values so powerfully embodied by Margaret Metzger's work, writing about education and coaching colleagues in self-reflection. In addition to teaching first grade at the Pierce School, and for the past 15 years, including 1 year teaching fifth grade, we don't really understand that, but anyway, Dominique's mentors colleagues, facilitating the Pierce Equity Action Team, and co-coaching as PSB Mentor Professional Learning Group. She conducts and presents research on topics related to writing and equity in education nationally and internationally, most recently as a fellow with Research for Action in Philadelphia and with a presentation at the National Conference for Teachers of English in 2026. She has facilitated opportunities for education professionals to reflect on their practice locally, nationally, and internationally, and presented her work at conferences, contributed to academic books with published in journals focused on supporting educators, professional, and personal growth. The BEF is looking forward to continuing the vital, unique fellowship program under Dominique's able and thoughtful leadership. Thank you all for coming, and now we are done. There are snacks outside. I think I have done everything. MPL coaches, is there anything that I need to make a final announcement about? Nope? Oh, get on your email, MPL folks. So thank you, happy holidays, and we will see you next October.